So, welcome everybody to a Startup Centre Victoria meetup where we interview business owners around the region and just get a sense of how they started up and what they encountered along their journey. And we're very delighted tonight to have you, Shu Yap from Interpsycle Astrology. I might have even pronounced that wrong in the lovely township of Guildford, but a bit more on that in a moment. I just want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land of the Dja Dja Wurrung people, very important during NAIDOC week, and I know Shu and I are both on part of this land, and some of you may be from further afield. So, Shu, maybe just to give us a little snapshot of what your business looks like, because I know you lecture, you have an international consultancy, there's lots of elements to your business. Just give us a little snapshot so we know what your business looks like at this point in time.
Sure. Thank you, and thanks for having me on the meeting. So my business is essentially in teaching, writing, and consulting in my area of expertise. And for whatever reasons, fortunately or unfortunately, most of my work tends to be overseas, and so that both brings challenges as well as opportunities as well for me. And interests as well. So yeah, so in a nutshell, yeah, I if I don't want to say to anyone that I'm an astrologer, and I just say I'm a teacher and a writer and a consultant. So there are lots of moving parts to what I do, but essentially it's one big umbrella, and they all intersperse with each other. And up until quite recently, I just couldn't decide which path I wanted to take. So I did all three. And I think it's also important to do all three in a way. As an astrologer, you have to keep your hand at it. You have to do consultations to be able to get, see clients, to get the case studies, and all of those case studies will feed into my teaching material. And it's through clients that I get inspired to research more and to explore more things, and hence why I have found it hard to separate these three streams, to be honest. But quite recently, I have decided to focus more on teaching.
Well, many would say in business that it's very savvy of you to diversify and not have all your eggs in the one basket, so to speak. But let's go back to the beginning. I don't know whether this was a hobby that became a business or vice versa, but what prompted you to actually move away from being employed, if you were employed, and start up your own business? So just explain a bit of the pathway.
Sure. Well, I kind of never intended it for it to be a business. So I guess it was an area of study and a passion. But then it quickly just became an unofficial business 25 years ago, and it was very different back then. We didn't have the openness to astrology that we do today. And I never really even told anyone I was an astrologer. Quite recently, it's only since about 2019 that I joke and I say I had my astrological coming out. So I was consulting for around up to nearly 20 years in secrecy, uh, in a very, very private manner. And I led a double life. I had a corporate job. I, did the normal things that people do as they, finish uni and buying a house and growing up and all that sort of adulting stuff. And I always had this side gig, which I never told anyone about. People just found me. And so I started, even though I had a lifelong interest in astrology, and part of it is due to my cultural heritage, I officially started studying at the Melbourne School of Astrology pretty much the same time I started my uni degree. So I even did two forms of study side by side. So I guess it got to a point where I couldn't lead this double life anymore. And, you're not an astrological audience, so I won't bore you with the technical astrological details, but I always knew that this time was a time in which I was going to be more open about what I do. And so it kind of just naturally evolved. I want to say that, there's a lot of luck involved as well, that I became this kind of internationally known kind of person. But I think maybe it was part of my destiny, but maybe it was, I've done a lot of work, and I also had a lot of luck to become involved in the translation movement that was done in the 90s. So a group of astrologers, um, realizing there was such a broken lineage in the Western system. So I'm a Western astrologer, that they all learned ancient languages to be able to translate ancient texts, so that we can try and rebuild the knowledge systems, because 20th century astrology is basically rubbish. We basically nearly lost the whole craft. And this project of translation kind of made me aware of this amazing body of tradition and knowledge that the Western system had that nobody knew about. And so it was a matter of working through these translations and trying to understand what they were. And that was a lot of my early years. And I guess I'm one of the cohort of astrologers that have been then putting these translations into practice for, over a decade at the time, and so now I'm able to sort of teach what these translations were. And so it's to me, I do astrology because I feel it's a moral obligation, to think that we might have lost all of this knowledge in the in the early 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, is just quite incredibly sad. And so I kind of, when I discovered this movement, I kind of vowed to sort of dedicate myself to trying to repair the losses that have been done. And, the texts, the burning of the Library of Alexandria was a huge loss to the tradition. And what I see more importantly is the loss to connection that the Western world has had because of literally the burning of the books. And we don't see that in the Chinese tradition or the Hindus. They have practices that have been in the tradition for thousands of years that are not lost. And I think that is part of the whole repair work that needs to be done on the Western culture, and connection to the land, connection to practices and their ancestry. So I guess I went off on a tangent there, but
Well,
that's what inspires me, I guess. And
we can hear your passion that came through clearly. So you talked about connections and how important they are. There must have been connections. How did you connect your integrity for people to reach out and say, we want you to come and lecture for us or do a consultancy for us? How do I know you said it's a side hustle, but you've obviously done it very well. So what were the key ingredients that helped you connect you to revenue streams?
Right. Well, so this is where a bit of like just being in the game for a long time, knowing people, and just people knowing my integrity, like, has equated to luck. So I actually was discovered, I guess, through a painting that I had painted, and I actually bought it because I thought this question might come up. But I painted this painting of the Samudra Manthan. It's a Hindu myth. I'm not sure if you know that story, but it's a creation story essentially of the eclipses and the lunar nodes. And just as I was finishing this painting, because I was going through a time in which the lunar nodes were being activated, so every 19 years it becomes activated. So just as I was finishing this painting, a friend, a colleague slash network person, that I know, who is a very famous astrologer who does a very famous, the most famous astrology podcast in the world. He just sent a message out saying that he'd just done an interview with a Sanskrit scholar on the lunar nodes. And I just messaged him. I said, oh, isn't that just synchronicity? Because I've just finished my painting of the lunar nodes. And he's asked me, he said, could I use that painting for my front cover, for the podcast cover? I said, sure, go ahead, for sure. I said, it's not a great painting, but, if you need something as a placeholder, that's what the whole podcast was about. And speaking from someone who had been working with a Sanskrit scholar that was working on those, that concept. And so that's how people found me, through this painting.
Connection. But you must have had a platform too. What channels did they find you through?
Well, essentially it was an email connection. But I did have an old website that I had, really bad at that stage. And it was never promoted, or I still don't really promote my webs, like do all the SEO stuff, and I don't understand it. I'm a complete techno, what do you call it, a laggard in that area. But so I just had a little online presence, just if people needed to find me and make a consult or whatever. So I guess it was that initially that connected to this kind of podcast. But I mean, there are other explanations, like when you say connection, because that particular painting, I actually, one of the areas of translations that I have been working with is a translation called the Picatrix, which is a 9th century Arabic Persian text on astrological magic. And what they call image magic. And when that text got translated, there was a very strict set of protocols that we discovered that the ancient Persians used to see when the stars aligned. Literally, there's all these criteria of a certain time, and you've got to meet all these, specifications of where planets are and all that sort of stuff. And I was studying that text at the time, and I noticed there was a particularly good chart, like that met all of the criteria. And the idea is that when you find a good chart, you want to imbue it into a materia, like something to earth it into the ground, and that becomes a talismanic product. It's a symbol or a talisman of that sky that we trap at a certain time. So that involves a whole lot of ritual work and protocols of rituals that that's involved to create it into a talisman. So I thought, I'm going to try it. My materia will be my canvas. And so I consecrated that canvas under the right protocols at the right time. And it's actually true what happened. It was that canvas that made that got me around the world, from being a secret scholar and consultant for nearly 20 years with no intention of actually coming out about what I do. It was, whilst I have possession of this, it's just, I guess, going to be giving me that chart's energy. But it's currently in my son's room because he's going through his little lunar node activation at the moment. So I thought I'd hang it in his room. So it might take him through this moment. So yeah, so there is that whole other side of what I do that's not in a business sense. It sounds very weird, but I guess I usually speak to an astrological audience. But I guess my point is that I'm working on the business from a cosmological perspective. And to me, I feel that gives me maybe a bit of an edge because I have a different lens to how I see the world and how I run my business.
Well, it's embedded in your philosophy, and many businesses are along those lines too. So don't feel alone there. So it's just so interesting. 20 years of research and hard work went into that canvas, and it opened up the universe to you. I'm just simplifying it down there from a business context. So do you spend any time on thinking about your business, your revenue streams, what is profitable, what is not? You obviously do things because you're passionate and love doing them, but how do you balance that up with paying the bills, so to speak?
Yeah, yes, that's where I fall down a lot. But yes, I do think about it a lot. I think about it a lot in terms of um, that moral obligation part of what I do, and that it's necessary as a legacy, not just for myself, but for the tradition, which I value very highly, um, as well as my time. I'm a mother of three boys. I've got a property that I manage as well. So part of this is a holistic system that I'm trying to balance, because I don't want to be stuck 9 to 5 in front of a screen. In fact, I really hate it. I want to be outside. I want to be there for my children. I want to, as far as they're concerned, I'm pretty much a stay-at-home mum, but I part of working with an international audience is that my work times are very different to the times in which um, in which the kids are up and the family life happens. So I, I that's how I juggle it. But yes, I'm always trying to replicate myself in what I do. So as a consultant, scaling your business is just so important, and that's my big uh, goal at the moment, is to scale what I do. I do that in terms of my teaching. That's why I'm focusing more with the teaching, but I'm also in the midst of producing a teaching tool, which I've never seen in the world, and which it's a very simple idea. And it draws from the influence of like the very ancient astrolabes, these devices that people had to track certain planetary positions and things like that. So I'm in the process of developing that. And I'm hoping that, and I'm pretty sure, like, have a really good feeling about this, but from this tool, there's going to be a whole lot of other things that stem from that. More courses, ways to use this tool, different applications of it. It could be a book, it could be, a whole online community. So it's all based on this product that I'm currently working on.
Oh, watch this space. I almost feel like you should be doing our pre-accelerator program at the moment with us
I
too.
know I should. I probably should, so I have more of an
No?
idea of what I'm actually doing. But
Yeah.
I feel my way through it, and I'm driven by passion. But I also don't want to put pressure on myself. When I started, you know, I don't actually know when I started this business, but I guess when I had my astrological coming out, I always promised myself that I wouldn't I didn't want to be one of those people that kind of rose quickly and fell quickly. I'm kind of in it for the long haul. Astrologically, I can see my peak is probably in my 60s. And so that's what I'm kind of aiming for. And there's kind of no deadline or end date to this kind of profession. In fact, you kind of grow more valuable with age. The longer you've been in this game, I guess people naturally value you more. So I don't see there's a big rush to it, and I want it to be a sustainable business where it gives me flexibility for my family and my other priorities in life that are equally as strong. And a lot of it comes with experience, lived experience of the theory that I've researched, and I think that's where my integrity is, because I see lots of young astrologers come in, they make good money, and then they fall quickly, and the stuff that they put out, it's stuff you see on social media. It's not, it's great for them, but I just don't want to be in that space.
Fair enough. So you've obviously had some challenges, I would think, moving from paid employment into managing your own revenue stream, setting up whatever you need to do. What have been the biggest challenges for you, and how did you overcome them?
I think probably, yeah, the technology aspect. Not so much in terms of interface stuff with design and things like that. It's more stuff to do with security and online, yeah, basically online security and all that sort of stuff. Like I don't even really fully know, like, to the extent, but I mean, I overcame that by getting a consultant in to kind of set me all up, set all of my online stuff up, like emails and uh, passwordy stuff, and like just my online integrity. Basically, you clearly can see I know a lot about that topic because I can't even seem to articulate it.
You
All
don't
I know
need
is that
to. You
that
know that
was
you needed help. That's all you need to know.
exactly,
So you decided that was a
absolutely,
worthwhile investment, not your skill set.
absolutely.
Any other
Yes,
challenges that
absolutely.
you've had to deal with?
Challenges, pricing was always a challenge initially. Because not because well, partly because of my self-value and, this kind of imposter syndrome thing, but it's actually because I've got two very different markets. A lot of my work is in America, and they're priced quite high compared to the Australian market. And it's still a challenge as to, because all my financial stuff is still set up in Australian dollars, and Australian banks. And so I know I need to work on that. I need to work on how I can kind of just maybe one day transfer everything to a US system. But I'm also quite cautious about doing that right now, just with the economy and what's happening in the world. I kind of want to let that wait out a little bit. But I know uh, I'm priced quite cheaply in America, but I'm very high in Australia, and I'm trying to maintain that so that there is some kind of congruence there. But then at the same time, Australia is probably not my key market. I probably, um, especially now focusing on teaching, my target audience are actually students, and students that not just need teaching, they're students that need consults, because I feel I can teach really well through offering a consult to a student, and we can go much deeper. We don't have to just stay on that surface level stuff just because they know the language.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
So
so yeah, the
when you
pricing.
say your students, are they international students as well?
International astrology students,
Yep.
essentially,
And
because I do teach.
they're still
Sorry.
organically reaching them. You're still through word of mouth or promotion. What is your biggest
Oh,
marketing tool these days?
sure. Well, I teach for a college in America called Kepler College, and they found me organically. And it's interesting because when I was starting out, I wanted to study at Kepler because it was the only college in the world that gave degrees in astrology. But at the time, there was no internet. I don't even think I had an email address, or there was no internet. There's definitely no online learning. And so the only way I was able to study there was to actually live in America, I think Seattle, where they were based, and study there for a few years. And that was completely out of the question. Totally couldn't afford it, just out of the question. So yeah, it's interesting. 20 years later, they asked me to come and teach for them. And I thought, wow, okay. And they've also been through a bit of a journey themselves. So when I started teaching for them, I thought, oh God, they're really shonky. Like they're so disorganized and, kind of run off an oily rag. And I thought, oh gosh, is this, is this worth my time? But they have just gone gangbusters since then. They got a lot of fresh injection of new teachers, and invested a lot into their marketing, and now they're one of the top astrological YouTube channels, for example. And so they get me to do a lot of webinars and or interviews and stuff on their YouTube channel, for example, and you know they've got thousands of followers. One of my videos might have 3 or 4 thousand um, whatever watches or views. So I do seem to find that they're quite worthwhile to work with, and a lot of the students there will tend to sort of stay with me, whether as clients or whether as um, students. And so since then, I've started running my own incubators, I guess. My my audience specifically is more around. I don't really want fresh students. I want intermediate students, and intermediate students that are having trouble taking that leap from studying to actually sitting in front of a client. And I feel that's where my expertise is. And so I kind of have this kind of incubator program of holding their hand to transition them. And over the years, that's actually taken me a while to hone down my target audience, what I want to do, like what niche do I want to be located in. And so, yeah, to answer your an initial question, was that's probably one of my biggest challenges, which I feel like I have started to tick off, after a few years of really testing out the waters and seeing what I like and what I don't like, and who I like to work with.
And it's
Yeah,
all
so
making
Kepler is
sense.
is
It's
amazing.
making sense now. You've got that teaching platform that is actually your marketing platform.
Oh
And
no, it's so
yes,
good.
win-win. Well done, you. I'm going to open up for questions in a moment.
Yeah.
If anyone has anything, just put your hand up and unmute, and feel free to go for it. I guess I'll just ask a final question while they're thinking about questions. What are the three top tips you give to someone starting out, and maybe even you could apply them to yourself when you were starting up? What do you wish you could have done differently? What would you do differently now?
Right. Okay. What would I've done differently now? I probably, looking back, should have had my boundaries up a bit more, like not just in consults, but in business. I had a particularly bad experience where I was engaged to teach a course, not for this college that I work for, because I was also asked to do lots of teaching gigs here and there, I guess. And yeah, there was one particularly bad one, based on this person just really overstepping the mark a lot and demanding a lot from me. Um, and I just wasn't comfortable with some of the things that they were asking me to do ethically as well. And so I probably should have been a bit more firm with my and clear before going into the partnership of what I was expected or wanted to do. So yeah, boundaries is one. Secondly, yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, I loved it when I got the consultant in to redo my whole online robustness part of things. So I wish I had got him earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, just for everyday operation, like, oh, like all my passwords are in the one place, and I have different passwords for everything that are actually very secure, and stuff like that. And the other thing is, it's probably still a challenge. I think networking is something I don't do very well. Um, I guess, I mean, I do have networks, but only because I've just done it for such a long time. But essentially, I am a hermit, and I'm a very private person, and so it's hard for me to actually get out and put myself out there. Um, so
Probably tick that
that's
off very well by being a lecturer for this college that is your networking. I would suggest you've probably fine-tuned it to an art. I think you've done very well. So don't be hard on yourself, Sheila. Very good.
yeah, networking. I'm networking with integrity, I guess, is what I strive for. My integrity is so important to me, and for what I do. I think that sometimes hampers and stops puts up limitations to myself that might not be there. So yeah, I guess the top three things.
All right, wonderful advice. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from our audience that you might like to follow up on some of the conversation or something we haven't touched yet? Karina has her microphone on.
Oh, I do. Just thank you, Shu, because my red flags is the marketing and the IT. And luckily, I've met Tara, and she's going to help me out there. So I look forward to working with Tara, because I've just got no
Oh,
idea
great.
with the IT side of things at all, and I actually get angry about it. So I'm more than happy for Tara to just deal with that, because I've got a holistic teaching business starting, and it's in I'm at the tinkering stage. And I just take a great deal of comfort from your words, Shu, because this is an alternative option for people to engage in of all ages. So thank you. The fees, I've got no idea either what to charge. I don't even want to charge, but I need to. So I find that conflicting.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Shu, how you said you're high in Australia, but not so high in America. How did you research that? Perhaps that could be a
Well,
good tip.
just just talking to other astrologers. Sometimes feedback, from local clients here, and I know it's hard. Like, it is. Yeah, I think it's really valuable advice, but it is a discretionary product, I guess, if you want to, so yeah, just from feeling the waters, talking to people. But what I learned about pricing is that you've got to do what's right for you, because you will then attract the right audience for you. The times where I have done, say, specials, like, and just really dropped it and done sort of batch readings or whatever, I always, I get a big, lump of money in my bank account. Sure, that's great. And it's great if I wanted to raise cash quickly, but I always regret it because it just burns me out. I don't enjoy the different types of clientele that are coming in, because I really want to work with people that are completely committed to their growth and their ascension, and really committed to seeing the world through a different lens, and merging these lenses together to make it work for them in their lived life. So, and you don't get that from people that just want to, get discounts all the time. you get people that just want to fix your problems for you. And I don't feel that's what I can do, because it really is about your own personal agency.
And it's not about quantity, it's about quality and knowing your target audience, which you've intuitively discovered along the way. But it's great that you had that reflection. It's always good to try new things and then reflect and think, how did that impact on me in terms of capability, how you feel about yourself, and so important to keep that balance. So great question and really good answer, I think. Do we have any?
But I don't regret sort of playing around at the beginning and testing things and knowing what's right, because I wouldn't have come to this niche, which I've only recently come to, if I hadn't have done all those things in the past. So I don't think anything's ever a mistake when you're starting in a small business. I think it's just important to have that perspective of, like, an intention. I'm doing this to try this out. I'm not completely committed to it in the long term, but and just to be kind to yourself and go, okay, well, that didn't work, and let's try something else. I think,
That's
yeah.
one good thing about small businesses. They're much more nimble than the big ones that can fall much harder. So we can be more flexible and nimble in that respect. Yeah. So where do you see yourself? You've talked about the long term and where you see yourself. I'm really interested with this new tool that you're developing, and I'm getting excited for you, because I imagine maybe that tool, as you say, can replicate yourself so that you can be out in the paddocks doing what you want to do and spending time with the kids while you're actually creating an income. Is that something that you've got in mind?
Yeah, the oxymoron of the whole thing is that by the time I get to develop that, you know, the kids will be off my hands and I'll be probably too decrepit to work out in the paddocks. But anyway, that's the
Maybe you better come and talk to us sooner then. We'll speed up the process for you a bit. But I
yeah,
mean, it's a
maybe I
wonderful,
do.
technology and knowledge, and being able to share it without being there face to face on a screen or face to face in a
Yes,
room is a gift that we have in this modern world, isn't it?
it is. And the product is actually a shift away from technology. You know, we see a lot of people, especially in the astrological world, forget about the sky, which is why we're actually doing what we do, because technology has just made it so convenient to just pull up a chart, pull up the sky on your computer screen. So part of this tool is to get is that it requires no technology. It could be paper based or cardboard based, so to speak. I see it sort of as ubiquitous as having an ephemeris, which every astrologer should have. I see it as a companion to an ephemeris. And my goal for this product is to um, be able to have some of these ancient knowledge from these translations become pop astrology, essentially, because people either that enter into the people that are interested in astrology, they receive that information through social media, and some of it's really great, but there's also, like anything on the internet, there's, you know, good information, and there's also really like crabby information. So I guess I'm aiming for a bit of a, you know, I know it's pretty lofty and ambitious, a bit of a cultural shift in the perception of astrology, that there is more to just what you're reading on the internet. In fact, you can use this tool to really track down nuances in your personality, in your understanding, in your perspectives. And I really, you know, I'm placing a lot of pressure on this tool, but I really think I can do that through this if I can pull it off. And so that will require a lot more investment and a lot more expertise, like that I don't have, like maybe social media marketing or but yes, certainly partnering with the college to with this tool is something that I have in mind, and partnering with colleges all over the world for this tool. So
Oh, exciting. We've
yeah,
heard
that's
in
the
Centre
plan.
Victoria first. We'll be looking forward to the grand opening or the
Yeah, well,
launching of
you
your
have heard it first, because I'm very tight-lipped about this to astrological audiences. Uh,
No,
yeah, yeah.
that's been great. All right. Well, we're drawing to the end. If there's no other burning questions, I will just thank you very much for your time. It's been a delight, purely because, one, you come from Guildford, which is such a beautiful little town. And every time I think of Guildford, I think of the big tree, the poplars along the river. Been in the news a bit lately, the general store closing and a
Yes,
potential co-op to open it up again. So many things about
absolutely.
Guildford, but it just reminds us that we have these unique, niche-based businesses pottering away, doing great stuff everywhere in the regions. And as you say, you've been flying under the radar and you wanted to know how I'd found out about you. We talk about these things, and it's been lovely to meet you and understand how important your lifestyle, your all these things are important in how your business has evolved. And congratulations. We look forward to lots more exciting things in the future. And thank you for being our guest this evening.
Thank you. And thank you for all your attention, and for people that are tuning in later. Hello and welcome to you too. And hopefully this has been helpful in some way.
So you better share your website in case someone would like to look you up.
Sure. Well, my business name is called Intercycle Astrology. I know it's a bit of a tricky one, but it's interpsycle.com. And yeah, everything's on there that you need. I guess the best way to connect with me is just to sign up to I write the weekly Intercycle Observator. So I write about the weekly news, weather, the weekly weather for astrology for the upcoming week. And I know a lot of people actually follow that because, sometimes I'm late with it and I get all these emails going, where's the observator? I'm like, oh God, just chill. Like, listen to your intuition perhaps for this week.
Well, that's
But
good
yeah,
to know.
that's also one thing that I started early was the email list, and that's been great.
Very
Yes.
important. Keeping in contact and information sharing with your clients, really good. Well, we'll put the link out with this recording as well. So once again, thank you very much, Shu, for your time this evening.